Good morning again, YouTube. It's June 20th, and we are on our way to hopefully finish the motor assembly. I'm feeling better. I drank a lot of water when I got home. Not that I wasn't drinking water while I was working on the motor last time, but it was just really hot. I mean, had to be about 92, 93 degrees, and the humidity was ridiculous. But anyways, it's going to be a much cooler day today. I think the high is only like 80, so it'd be a perfect day to get a lot of work done. So I don't really have a whole lot left to do before it goes back into the tractor. I got to put the push rod or the lifters in and finish the rear main seal, and from there it'll mount back on the engine stand, and I'll put the oil pan on and the side cover plates, the water jacket cover and the lifter cover plates, and then the Magneto drive and governor housing can go on, and then it's the front timing cover and the crankshaft pulley, and probably put the water pump and belt on, and then it'll go back in the tractor and cylinder head and adjust the valves. It should be good to go. So stay tuned. Hopefully it goes swiftly and we don't run into any issues. Alright? I'm going to keep driving. Alright, well, we're in the shop now. First things first, I want to get the main caps safety wired. So in order to do this, the correct way to do it is to run your wire in the direction that the bolt will tighten. So basically, if your bolt's going to turn this way, you know what I'm saying? If your bolt's going to turn this way, you should run your wire through, and when you tighten, how do I want to say this? The direction that you twist the wire together to tighten the wire should cause the tension to be pulled on the turning side of the bolt. Follow what I'm saying? So if your bolt is turning this way, clockwise, your wire should run out the clockwise side or the upward swing side, so that when you twist the wires together, it's pulling the bolt tighter. That will not allow the bolt to turn out. Okay? And I've already noticed that this one is ran through incorrectly. So I'll set the camera down and we'll rerun this wire. And this is just mechanics wire. You can get it from pretty much any hardware store or automotive store. So we're going to go through this side so that it pulls on the upward motion or the clockwise side of the bolt. And then we're going to go back up, around, and through this bolt so that it pulls in the same fashion. We'll just give it a couple twists and then hit it with our pliers to draw them in tighter. Just like that. Give it a couple more turns here. And then we can cut the excess off. And bend this portion down in. And that's all there is to safety wire. So your finished product should look something like that. Alright. I'm going to keep going on the other two main bearings here. And then I think we'll take the motor out of the stand so I can finish the rear main. And put the back plate on, the engine adapter plate for the rear, and go from there. Alright? Stay tuned. Alright, so I pulled the motor off the stand, got the rear main seal on. Like I said in the previous video, there's two vertical bolts, one here and one here, that clamp the main down to the crankshaft. And then there's two bolts that attach the bottom half of the rear main to the block itself. I've got the rear adapter plate on, minus these two bolts, because that's where I need to put the engine stand bolts. But right now I have to get the rear cover plate on for the rear main seal, which basically joins the bottom section of the rear main to the block itself and creates a flush mating surface for the oil pan. So once we get that on, we should be able to put the oil pan on, and then from there we'll turn the engine back over. We'll put the water jacket cover plate on. We'll put the lifters in and the lifter cover plate on, and from there we can install the Magneto housing and the governor. And I think after that it'll be the timing cover and the crankshaft pulley, and we'll be ready to take it off the stand permanently. So I'm just going to set the camera down here, give you guys a decent view of, let's see, of installing that rear plate. And there is a gasket that goes between here, so you want to make sure that surface is good and clean. And this rear adapter plate, hope you can see it, but there's a stud that comes up. That's going to go in this type of an orientation here so that the oil pan has something to bolt to in the middle. And I don't know if you guys do this. This is what I do. I've had good luck doing it. Some people use a gasket sealant. I just use the RTV gasket maker, and I'll put a gob between my fingers here and just kind of smear it around on the gasket surface itself, or on the gasket itself, just basically to create a tacky surface. And if there's any irregularities in the mating surface, hopefully the gasket maker will fill those irregularities. So I do just enough basically that it's coated. I don't gob it on so that it leaks out everywhere when you install the gasket and tighten all the bolts, but just enough to coat it. And there's two rubber inserts in this as well, that are one's here and one's here. So I'll go ahead and get these in. There's a series of bolts that go into the bottom side of the rear main seal here. I believe they're 9/16 bolts. Most everything on this motor is 3/4, 1/2 inch, 9/16. That's what makes these old things so nice to work on, is you can essentially tear them down with a basic set of wrenches. That's the way they should be. Gotta find my wrenches here. I know they're around here somewhere. You know, I really want to thank you guys too for staying tuned, and I know some of these videos get a little long and a little boring, but assembling a motor is a process. It's slow, and that's just kind of how it goes. I just hope that some of the stuff I'm doing, people learn from. I know I learn along the way. So you don't want to over tighten these, because this rear main is an aluminum, a cast aluminum piece. So we should be good there. And that should be about it. And there is a, I suppose I could put that in now, prior to the oil pan going on. There's a cover plate that goes here as well to cover up the rear main. There's a gasket that goes there too. So I'll go ahead and install that since I'm upside down. Use some gasket maker here and just smear it on there. Sometimes these bigger gaskets you just gotta kind of massage the gasket maker all over them, and like I said, I just do it as a precaution. I'm probably going to get a whole lot of flack from guys that say, well, if you do it properly, you shouldn't need any gasket maker material. And well, you know what? It's not the fact that I'm not doing it properly or I'm not needing it. It's just added insurance for me. I did this on my John Deere, and heck, I don't have virtually any leaks on that thing. So I'm going to keep doing it until it backfires on me. I know it's a little bit messier process when it comes down to tearing things apart. It causes things to stick together a little bit, but hey, that's a, you know, when you're trying to prevent leaks, that's probably a good thing. That I got to trim off some of the bottom of this gasket, I think. It's a little bit too long. See if I can find a razor blade here. Well, I'm going to stop the camera so I can try to find a razor blade. Alright guys, we got the water jacket inspection plate on. That's done. Now I think I'm going to put the lifters in. And it's pretty simple. It's just a matter of putting some assembly lube on them and dropping them in place, and then we put the cover on and good to go. So there's one. Make sure it slides good in the opening. And you can always put plenty of assembly lube on these things, because remember, they're going into dry sockets. So just kind of make sure that they're lubed up nice. And see, I've got these marked as well. I wrote on them in permanent marker where they came from. So I did the same thing with the push rods, because you always want to kind of put them back in the same spot where they came from, because they're already wore in to those holes. So I mean, you are going to adjust everything again anyways. So realistically, you wouldn't have to, and I know I'm going to get a lot of criticism for saying that, but you're going to adjust everything on this motor. So over time, these things are going to wear in anyhow, even if you drop them in different holes. So I know there's going to be a lot of guys that say, well, they need to be matched. Well, that's fine. I mean, I do it that way as well, but realistically, you've got to adjust all your valves, all your rocker arms anyways. So what's the difference? I'd like to know what the difference is, besides the wear pattern and the fact that, you know, each particular lifter and each rod came out of their own respective holes. I can guarantee that they didn't machine each lifter to each hole. These were mass produced, and they've got tolerances that allow for that. It'd be no different than going and getting a used set of these lifters and installing them in a different motor. It wouldn't make any difference. You're still going to have to adjust them. You know what I'm saying? That's probably the best way I can describe it, is to say, okay, let's say you need to buy different lifters and you get some used ones. Now what do? You have no idea what hole they came out of. And they came out of a different block nonetheless. So what's the difference in putting a set of used lifters and push rods in a motor than reversing any of the order here? I would hope that most of you would agree and say, well, there is no difference, because there isn't. So, to everybody who wants to cry and say, oh, you got to do it this way, and if you don't, you're going to be paying for it. Well, they've obviously never put used parts in a motor before. So, let me take these gloves off here. And there is a small I forgot all about it. There is a small steel strap in here that keeps the lifters from falling out when it's on the stand when you turn it over upside down. So I'll install that here quickly, and then we'll go from there. Tell you, this is going a lot quicker now that it's not 100 degrees outside. Sure does make a difference in productivity. That and a lot more sleep. And even when I was looking this thing over, I figured, I better look it over and see if I missed anything. And sure enough, the oil pump, one of the bolts that holds the oil pump to the block, wasn't even tight. It was just in there finger tight. So it's a good thing I looked it over. Kind of make sure this thing is somewhat straight. That way the push rods don't hit it when I go to install them. Whoop. It's rolling away from me now. Okay. Now we can put in the inspection plate. I just have to find the gasket that goes in here now. So essentially this inspection plate just has 4 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you want to tighten them probably similar to what you would the valve cover, which is typically finger tight and then 1 full turn past finger tight. Alright, so I'm just going to stop the camera just because it's these 4 bolts. It's real simple. After we get this on, I think we're going to go ahead and mount the Magneto drive, get that timed, and from there we can put the front cover on, the oil pan, and the governor housing, and the motor should be pretty much ready to go back in. We'll have to take it off the engine stand again to get the flywheel and clutch assembly on. But yeah, making progress. Stay tuned. Alright guys, well, we've got the tappet side cover on. I just slid the Magneto drive housing on, and I want to show you the timing marks here. These 2 punch marks are to line up with these 2 punch marks. So the Magneto drive is in time with the cam, and the single punch mark on the cam goes with the single punch mark on the crankshaft, and those are to be aligned. So right now our engine is in time, and all I have to do is put the front cover on, and the crankshaft pulley can go on, and from there I think we will put the governor housing on. So we're getting closer. Once I get that front cover and governor housing on, we'll get the crankshaft pulley on and tip the engine back over and do the oil pan quick, and I think it'd be time to pull it off of the stand. Oh, I suppose we could mount the water pump assembly as well. So we'll do that. I'll get the timing cover ready to go here, and then we'll go from there. All right. Well guys, sorry I didn't show some of the video here, but my battery's running low. I had it plugged in all night. I don't know what's going on with it, but maybe it's just this cheap battery doesn't last as long. Anyhow, I got the governor assembly on. The front end is all buttoned up. I got a new 1/2-inch spring pin in the crankshaft for hand cranking. The fan belt is tight. And let's see what else. Well, the flywheel's on, and this flywheel can only go on one way because there's 2 dowel pins on the back of the crankshaft, and the way that they're mounted or pressed into the crankshaft, they're off center according to the bolt pattern, so this flywheel can only go on one way. And this flywheel gets torqued to 90 foot-pounds. The pressure plate and clutch assembly is obviously installed. I torqued these to 20 foot-pounds a piece. I can't find a torque value in the INT shop manual, so I googled it, and the only thing I could find was for a Farmall B, and that was at 15 foot-pounds, so I figured I'd go 20 on this. Magneto drive housing is mounted. Oil pan is mounted, although I'll have to admit I had to take it back off because I forgot that I had set the RTV gasket tube on one of the main bearings while I was getting the gasket ready to go on. So I flipped the engine over and heard a big clunk inside there, and I thought, darn it, I gotta take it back off. But anyways, I got it going. Got it going back together. So no big deal. Let's see what else. I think that's about it. Oh, the breather tube. That's pretty simple. That just bolts with a support bracket to the oil pan bolt. This is that clutch, I guess, flywheel housing gap guard, you could call it. That's there. Yeah, we're pretty much ready to put it back in the tractor here. And you know, after I'm looking this thing over, I'm gonna have to loosen this fan belt to get the generator belt on, because that has to go over everything. Ain't that a kick in the pants? But anyhow, let's slide this thing outside and get it ready to go back in the tractor. We're making progress. I'm excited. Well, as you guys can see, we've got the motor back in. It took a long time to get that radiator mounted on the pedestal though. I'll tell you what, it was a pain in the butt to get those springs and washers and nuts on those studs on the bottom of the radiator. It took probably an hour and a half before we finally figured out, well, let's just make our own tool, which is this. It's a spring compressor for springs in a door jamb, but we cut it down, made our own version of it to compress the springs underneath that pedestal. And I apologize that I didn't show more of the engine going into the frame, but essentially all we had to do was use the clutch alignment tool, which he's got, to center the clutch plate and slide it back in, bolt it up, and away we went. But I wasted a lot of time working on that radiator, getting it mounted, and I got to go to work tonight, and it's already 4 o'clock. I got to work at 10, so I have to go home and get some sort of sleep before I go to work. But didn't get as far as I wanted again, but we did get the motor back in, and I'm just going to cover it up, and hopefully I can get back over here this weekend and get the manifold on and you know, get that stuff buttoned up, get all the gauges mounted, and the fuel tank, stuff like that, carburetor. But we've made a lot of progress in just 2 days of working. So, and if it weren't for my friend Damian, who's in the house with his daughter feeding her right now, because she was helping too. She's a cutie. But if it weren't for his help, I'd have left and gave up a long time ago with that radiator, because that thing kicked my butt. But here's where she sits as of now. Not too bad. I did throw a quick coat of red paint on the engine block, primer and red paint, but just to protect it. And I still got to do the head and valve cover, but that's where we're sitting. It's coming together. So, and it's hot. It's over 80 degrees, I know that. But I gotta go home, get showered up, and take a nap and get ready for work. So again, I apologize for not showing more of the engine going in, but we just really needed to make some progress and get as much done as I could today, because I don't know if I'm even going to make it back next weekend. I got some other projects that some other people want me to take care of for them. So yeah, after that I'll only have 2 weekends left before I go back to weekdays. But hopefully I can get most of this buttoned up and taken care of before then. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next round of assembly. Take care.